Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Cocktails with Steve and Tom. And I'm gonna bring on my guest. He's got his own theme song. We just figured it out. Tom Mars, bring him on.
That's what I've needed.
There's your bring on to the show rock.
There
Background music sponsored by free of all copyrights from StreamYard. Tom Mars, welcome to the Cocktails with Steve and Tom show that we made up yesterday.
It's great to be your guest, Steve. It's a real honor and a privilege. And, you know, if anybody's watching us right now, I just texted Steve, let's do a Zoom and catch up together. But I don't know. You text a guy like him, and the next thing I know, I'm on an internet TV show with, hair and makeup and a shirt by Goodfellas and watch by Boulevard. And maybe no makeup and maybe not that much hair.
Sponsor mentions. Yeah. So when anybody presents me with the opportunity to create content, I think, we should share this. So you said, should we get on a Zoom call?
Yeah.
So what I heard was, we should make content, and a Zoom call with you is going to be so interesting. We should probably share it with everyone and live stream it. So you said, okay.
What can I say? I said, okay. Yeah. There you go.
So some people have been wondering, like, who's Tom Morris? Why are you doing this? My mother, who you know, Millie.
Yeah. Right? Millie's the Great. Millie the Great should be her name. Millie the Great.
From the famous My Mom's blog, if you don't know her. So she's 96 years old now, and she's doing great, still following me on Facebook. And she says, hey, Steve, you posted about this show 3 times, same message on Facebook. So she's watching me every minute, and you promoted the show with some nice writing. So I shared that on my timeline. So that's why she saw it a few times.
That's good.
So, I said, why don't we just go live and do it on StreamYard, which I love. And it's a great way to stream shows and make them live. And it reminds me of how we met on Joseph Jaffe's show during when COVID first started.
Yeah, that's right. It was probably June or July of 2020.
2020, yep.
Yeah, it was July. It may have been July. And boy, I mean, I met so many people through Joseph's show. It's amazing. People like you and Joseph will often have on these chief marketing officers with all these interesting backgrounds, the Coca-Cola guy and the Converse and this place and that place. And it was just a fascinating group of people, really,
Yeah, it was great. And so he had his live show, and back in the beginning of when we were quarantined. We were in the house, like not going out much. So this became a daily live show that I would watch, and I was feeding him how-tos and what I thought he should be doing. And I forget how it actually happened, but I was a big proponent of making the audience more than just the audience, but part of the show. Oh. And so we had an after show on Zoom where anyone who was watching could come, and we could all chat together and meet the guest.
Yeah.
And so you were a regular and other people were regulars, and then we just got to know each other. And that's, without meeting in person, people who aren't familiar with it, the power of video, this was the power of video that I found when I started video blogging back in 2004. When I started video blogging, we were watching everybody else's videos. And then when we finally met in person, we said, I feel like I know you. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
We became close friends from seeing each other every day on video.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it was that way with Joseph's show in the summer of 2020, when we had all been locked down since March or something. And we were getting to know each other. We were in different parts of the country, some people in different parts of the world. And I remember when he had on the guest who had just written the book about hallucinogenic drugs and their role in philosophy and religion. And that guy was coming to us from someplace in South America. And it was like he was down the street, you know?
Right,
Crazy
right.
stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah. I always admire your musical instrument there on the wall behind you, Steve.
Oh, this one?
The world's smallest guitar.
Okay, so I'm hearing an echo. I wonder why.
Do you have your echo cancel button available?
Oh, remove echo cancellation. Let me check.
See if that reverted to its default position.
Off. I'm going to put on headphones just for a second.
Okay. I have headphones, but not in this part of the house.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm always prepared.
Okay. Hello.
You know, I tried to join the Boy Scouts, whose motto is "Be prepared," but unfortunately, I wasn't prepared.
In the settings here for StreamYard is the audio test. I'm going to play this test, see if you can hear it. You can hear this?
I heard the word "this." You're grooving to something, but I'm not hearing it.
Oh, you're not hearing it?
No, I'm not hearing it. Just guess it's going through your headphones.
It's a test for StreamYard, and two of the people who work at StreamYard recorded it, and it's music.
Oh, I see.
And the lyrics are testing your speakers on StreamYard. It sounds great, doesn't it? And that's the lyrics. And that instead of beep, 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 they made a custom song.
Well, there you go. But only you can hear it. So we just kind of trust you for all this.
So I'm going to take these off and see what happens.
All right. Nothing like making this up as we go.
No.
Now I'm hearing myself echo again.
This is like the early days of hello, are you on? Can you hear yourself? Okay, how about now?
I don't know. Let's see. No, there's no echo. We're clear.
Okay, I fixed it. So we have another guest I'm going to bring on, if he's ready, from the Joseph Jaffe early day shows. Can you see him in here? Let's bring on Joey Dumont and say hello.
No way. No way. Joey Dumont.
What's up, Professor? How are you?
This is like a new version of This Is Your Life. I mean, if my third grade teacher is next, I'm in trouble. It's good to see you, man.
It's good to see you, brother.
How you doing?
A long time. I'm doing really well.
All right. You look good. You look good. You look better every time I see you. I got to figure out what your secret is. Maybe my eyes are just getting worse. I don't know.
I'm a kept man.
Yeah, I should have thought of that. You know?
Yeah, when you don't work for the last 4 years, you don't have any stress. I think that's really what it is.
So that's good.
Nice. Yeah.
I like that. That's kind of a life 101 that I should have figured out for myself a long time ago.
Steve invited me on Facebook the other day, and he said, "What are you doing at 2:00 your time?" And I was like, "I'm jumping on with you guys." So that's fabulous. It's good to see you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, per your conversation, we did make friends over Jaffe's show, and that was really cool. It was like, he's a good dude, and obviously he's off to the races with NFTs and all the things he's doing now, and I think that's cool to see. And as you know, Tom, you helped me with my book, which was fabulous, and then as I pivoted into my next career, I hit you up on that as well. So it's going back to work in February was cool and fun, and I'm enjoying it.
That's good. That's good, man.
Well, Joey, what is this next career? What happened?
Well, as you guys know, I was podcasting after I wrote the book, and I decided to dive into some deep topics, specifically defund the police and critical race theory. And as I started to do that, I realized that this wasn't just fun. I could actually do it for a living. And so I brought on 5 people total. I brought on 2 buddies that are journalists to join True 30, which is my company. And then I brought on 3 media experts and writers. And so what we're doing now is we are reporting on what we call slow journalism. So True 30 is the home of slow journalism. And what it means is the big topics that we're covering, like defund the police, critical race theory, and gender dysphoria, which we just started on a series last Friday. We published an intro piece called True 30 Talks Trans. And I've interviewed scholars from the UK, Australia, different parts of Western Europe, and Scandinavia that have done a whole bunch of homework specific to puberty blockers for children. And what does it mean to be trans? Are trans women actually women? And then I interviewed a bunch of specifically second wave feminists who were on the show. A woman named Helen Joyce, who is the Irish journalist and editor in chief at The Economist in Britain. And she wrote a best-selling book called Trans: When Ideology Meets Reality. And it's been, a big, let's just say there's a lot of discussion about that, specifically with the trans community. And one of her colleagues is a woman named Julie Bindel, who is a famous and storied journalist for the last 40 years, specific to women's liberation. And she wrote a book called Feminism for Women. And so I had these women on the show. I also interviewed a couple trans folks. And now I'm interviewing parents who are actually going through this saga with children who identify as a different or other than their biology. So a little boy who at 6 decided he was a little girl, and she has been transitioning for 3 years. And now the parents are in the unenviable position of having to decide whether they want to use puberty blockers before she goes into puberty, obviously because she's biologically male. And if that happens, that alters her forever. So yeah, we drove this in February 11th was our opening day. We're live, but we haven't launched specifically. And we're going to launch out to the market once we have about 30 articles up and about 15 to 20 podcasts specific to these 3 topics. We're also doing stuff on how the media is dividing us as a culture. I interviewed a young woman named Catherine Gell, who wrote a book called The Politics Industry with Michael Porter. Michael Porter is one of your ilk, Tom. He's a professor at Harvard, an economist professor. And they wrote something about something called Final Five voting, which is going to take place in Alaska for the first time this year, which circumvents a lot of the primary issues we have in our elections today. And so I interviewed here on the podcast last week, and that will go live at the end of June. So yeah,
is that something like ranked voting?
Yes, it's very similar. It's a piece of it. So the idea is that you eliminate the primaries, both for the Republicans and the Democrats, and you have one primary that will have everyone involved. In Alaska, they had 48 people on the ballot. So it was one of those things where, as you guys know, Lisa Murkowski's up for re-election this upcoming election, and she has a Trump-appointed person that's going against her. There's a Democrat and 2 independents. They will be the first election in Final Five voting in 2022 in the history of our republic. So very interesting topic. I have a reporter interviewing her next week on that actual election piece. So yeah, long-winded answer, boys. But what we're doing now at True 30 is we're trying to explore the topics that divide our culture the most through a lens of compassion and empathy and tons and tons and tons of homework. So, the more you learn about any subject, the less adamancy you have, right? Yeah. You're like, wow, I really don't know anything anymore.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's been going on.
So has that top 5 voting been used elsewhere?
Not yet. The ranked voting is in California and Washington, Alaska, and Maine. And so they've attempted to do that. But the neat thing about when Catherine and Michael Porter wrote a 27-page kind of dissertation on this and how ballot states like California and Alaska can actually get it on the ballot, so you can actually circumvent your Congress people that way. You can get the actual law on your voting ballot. They did that in Alaska, and 2022 will be the first time that Final Five voting has ever been used. And her point, which is something we're going to explore deeper as we continue to dive into our reporting, is that if we can get 4 to 5 senators in Final Five voting, or 4 to 5 states, then we'll have 10 senators that are now part of this. And those 10 senators not only have to not worry about getting primaried, right? A nice verb, but what they can figure out is that they can actually do what their constituents want them to do. Because currently, as we know with our body politic, you have the minoritarian class taking over the votes, right? So the 10% on the far right and the 10% on the far left are the ones that the Congress people and the senators have to cater to, or they lose in the primary. With this new system, obviously it doesn't eliminate all the problems we have in our body politic, but it does allow the senators or the Congress people or the lawmakers in general to reach across the aisle and start to work with one another again, like we did in the Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill days, as opposed to being so cantankerous with one another that you can't work with each other, or you do lose your seat, in the next upcoming election. So yeah, it's going to be a really cool story. We just started on it, but we have a couple months of reporting to do on that, and we're excited about it.
Wow, that's great. You found the hot button issues for sure, and the whole approach of diving into it with real care and kind of a compassionate attitude toward the people for whom these issues matter so much, and to try to share those perspectives. What a great idea that is, Joey. I'm glad you're doing it, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Texas is doing, they're trying to pass legislation that says that these gender clinics are child abuse, which obviously is, mean-spirited and just categorically false. My brother, as you guys know, is a family law attorney. And when you use words like child abuse against a parent without evidence, that is bad faith.
Yeah.
And exactly what Greg Abbott is doing. The converse of that, however, is that something called gender affirmative care is that we are, in fact, putting children on these drugs, Lupron being the drug of choice, for puberty blockers, which was originally designed and indicated by the FDA for something called precocious puberty. So like normally within little girls at 6, if they start to go into puberty, they put these kids on this puberty blocker, which is a very strong drug, by the way. And so the fact that we don't have enough longitudinal studies on the long-term deleterious effects of children, that's a scary notion that we need to look into, one of which specifically is bone density. And so it does have an effect on bone density for kids on this drug. So when they say, they being in the advocates for this, that there's no long-term problems, we are now finding out because of our research in Australia, Britain, and Scandinavia that there are, in fact, health issues associated with these drugs. And so it's typical of all of our discussions politically. The right says something that is usually a little bit off or to their own partisanship, and then the left says something that's a little bit off. We as an organization are trying to actually pull the truth from both pieces, bring it to the center and saying, hey, both of them are right and both of them are wrong. And here's what we found out through, 100 hours of reporting or 200 hours of reporting. We've done, with gender ideology alone, we've done 400 hours of reporting just to do our first story. So it's that complicated. I mean, I got 6 months of clinical research from an MD researcher in Australia who refuses to talk about her. I can't disclose her name because she doesn't want to lose her job. But the research that she gave to me, I poured over for 3 months, and there's a lot to learn. Let's just say that. And our culture, we like things in 6-minute segments and memes on social media, and none of the topics that I mentioned are capable of being discussed in short bites. They're just too complex.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you even get the impression sometimes that the 6 minutes on screen came from 12 minutes of research, So the fact that you guys are doing such extensive research is pretty amazing. I mean, when I suggested to Steve by a text yesterday that we get together soon on Zoom and catch up, I had no idea that we would be in a discussion of puberty blockers, whereas he and I have been on puberty sustainers all these years.
Yeah, that's what we need. Us old guys need that shit.
I can't get over my adolescent sensibilities no matter how hard I try.
Yeah, no, me neither. As you know, you were on the cover of my book. I had some issues growing up. So
yeah. I mean, most of us do. Have issues that we sometimes weren't even that consciously aware of until they bit us on the butt later in life, and we have to go back and examine stuff.
Yeah. Well, now meeting you guys was one of the, highlights of COVID. And I think that's what Jaffe did best when he started his show, is that he brought together a bunch of people who were, like you said, Tom, early on the show here, is that we were 3 months in, maybe, March, April, May, June, something like that. And then we got on the show and we were all like, hey, people. I miss you guys, and it's just like, it was nice seeing it. And we saw each other every morning for at least a year,
Yeah.
And to your point, Steve, the after show was the best part about it, because when you got the guest to actually come on the show and then field our questions, which was obviously a very small group, and we got to ask them You know, I love that guy that was talking about, you know, the ayahuasca training and all of the pieces.
Yeah, I know.
That was a fascinating guest.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that book too, by the way. So
he was sitting in Venezuela or Colombia or someplace, and there we were kind of talking to him like he was down the street. You know, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, because he went and visited Greece and actually went in to try to find the religion before Catholicism, right? That was the whole idea behind it. And it was just
Brian Mururescu.
Rescue. Nice pull, Professor. That's who it was. Yeah,
Brian. He's an amazing. He was a really nice. He is a really nice guy.
Yeah. Did you see him on Rogan? Because he did.
I did. Yeah. I didn't get to hear him much on Rogan because it was mostly Rogan talking, but I did see him there.
Well, that's Rogan in general. But yeah, they did a deep dive. I think it was a 3-hour show.
They did. In fact, another friend of mine was a guest on Rogan. And I told him later, I said, hey, you interviewed him better than he interviewed you. And he said, yeah, Joe likes to hear himself talk.
Yeah. They had a couple guys, the Supernatural, the author of that. I can't remember his name now, but he talked at length about peyote and ayahuasca specifically for the treatment of depression and anxiety, which was a really fascinating topic. And that's actually something that I've seen quite a bit of since then, is that there's a lot of that in the medical channels now that is talking specifically to that, because it does open a door that allows you to kind of figure things out, you know?
Yeah. Now there were people before Brian who had written about this, but he kind of opened the door to it. Ever since his book came out. You're right. I've seen more and more of that kind of all over the media, you know, the micro dosing discussions and all that. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah. What have you been up to, Steve? Oh, go ahead.
Picking golf back up.
Yeah. Nice.
Really?
Yeah. After like a 30-year absence.
Okay.
So
how's
taking
that going?
lessons. Good. Great.
Really?
I finally got this really good tip of how to like coil and coil up and then uncoil.
Yeah, like a snake.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. You could be away 30 years and it's going so well. I mean, maybe I should take 30 years off from philosophy and it would go a lot better once I came back. Of course, I really literally have to come back at that point.
Yeah, you'd be dead.
We have a really good teacher. He's so good. And we're actually taking a clinic, Carol, my wife and I, and it's a bunch of other people. And they take you through each club, how to chip, pitch, putt, drive. And each week I try and take a lesson away, but and it's 8 weeks. Week 7 last week was like my best week, and we're all in a line hitting the ball, and he walks behind us, and it's like, you really don't want him watching you, but you do want him watching you. So he comes over, he says, "Oh, I was watching you from way over there, and you were hitting it really good." And the funniest thing was he gave me this club, and he called it a wiggly club. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, because if you move
the shaft is like rubber.
Moves. Yeah.
So if you hit it wrong, the head of the club is going all over the place. But if you have the right tempo, the club stays straight. So he says, "Steve, try and hit the ball with this one." So I did a practice, and then I hit it, and it went perfect, unbelievable straight. He's like, "Whoa, that was great! Like, I should teach more with this club." So it's been fun because it's going to take a lifetime to master this sport, and it's got me interested in watching a lot more golf, like the PGA this weekend. I don't know if you guys watched that.
Huh? Yeah,
unbelievable, really fun, because some people think golf is boring, but I don't think that way. The one guy, I don't know if you saw him, he was in the sand trap, and at this course, the sand traps were like,
they're huge.
Could they be like 6 feet deep?
Oh yeah,
unbelievable. And
they're pot bunkers.
Try and hit it up, and it hits the lip and goes back down. I think that one guy, I forget his name, he hit it back in twice, and on the third shot, he hit it out, hit the flag, went in the hole.
Yes, and he got a double bogey. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, well, he got out of it with that. Yeah.
Isn't the U.S. Open at Brookline this year?
It is. Chestnut. Yeah, Brookline.
Yeah. I caddied there.
Oh, it's at the Country Club.
At
and
the Country Club.
We drove by a sign last week, and it said, credentials, pick up your credentials here. And I looked over, and they were huge. Like it says U.S. Open in big letters.
Yeah.
And this week I want to go take a picture with that sign because the whole area is just going to be crazy. You can't. It's all sold out. I think
my God, it has been forever.
Golf course next door, they allow cars to park on it.
Okay,
but it's going to be
when
crazy.
Is it? Do you know the day?
It's coming up.
It's got to be pretty soon because I caddied there in 1991, and in Caddy Hill at the Country Club, which by the way is the oldest country club in the United States of America.
Okay.
And they let their first non-white person in 92, I think, the year after I left.
Wow.
And it is as elite a country club as you'll ever be. Like Tom Brady had to beg, borrow, and steal to get his membership there. And he only got in like 5 years ago after he won after 5 Super Bowl wins, but they still wouldn't let him in. And when I was on the hill, Caddy Hill, you're not allowed to talk to the members unless they address you first. And the caddy master was a guy named Danny who would drive around and you had to be on the hill at 6 because that's when the first loop where you go out and do your caddying starts at 6. And then if you're good, you get another one at like 10 or 11. So you get 2 loops a day. And this was in 1991. So fact of this, it was $75 a loop. So for us broke kids in college, that was tons of money, right? So you can make $150 a day carrying bags.
So where'd that money come from?
It comes from the actual members themselves.
But so was it tips too?
It's just tips. It's it's just cash.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah, they just sign a little coupon for you. You take it to the caddy shack.
Oh,
you get your $75.
It's on their account. Yeah.
And you leave. You're not allowed in the clubhouse. You're not allowed to talk to the members. You're not allowed to talk until they talk to you. It was brutal. You remember this chapter, Tom? I mean, I talked about it. It was an extraordinary experience of being other. Let's just say that. It was like
Tom Brady,
you were chattel.
Before Tom Brady moved away, his house was like across the way from across the fairway from the country club. And he got in trouble for leaving his house and walking across the fairway to go to the clubhouse. They didn't like that. And that's what he was doing.
No, it's really strict. It was, but I can't wait to watch that because I played that course. We were allowed to play once in a great while. So I caddied there the whole summer and I played 4 times. It's a really beautiful course, and it's if you're not a good golfer, it kicks your butt. So it was a lot of fun.
Guys, I've never played golf. I've watched it in person twice. Once at the Greater Greensboro Open in North Carolina, the GGO, and once at Pebble Beach, because I was speaking at the Pro-Am, I guess it was Pebble Beach Pro-Am.
Oh wow!
I followed Bill Murray around that day, and he was hilarious. And
what year was that?
Oh man, I can't remember. It was a good long time ago.
99.
Could be.
Because Bill Murray was there when I was there. I took clients there to the PGA.
It could have been 99. Yeah, I was speaking for one of the sponsors. So one of the sponsors had a big tent, and I gave a talk, and I got to spend the day walking around with the golfers. And then my Greensboro Greater Open story was really different. I was a kid. I was in high school. And my dad ran a radio station at the time, or maybe junior high school, one or the other. I can't remember now. Maybe junior high. So my dad ran a radio station. He got free tickets to the GGO, and he didn't play golf, and I didn't play golf, but I was going to maybe go with one of my friends I didn't know. But I took another tack, and one morning my dad came into my bedroom. We lived in this tiny little house, 800 square foot house, 2-bedroom house. My dad came into my bedroom and said, "Hey, Tommy, you got a call from a guy who says his name is Buddy Hackett. Do you remember the comedian Buddy Hackett, who was always on the Tonight Show?"
Yeah.
Well, the junior high school me got a phone call from Buddy Hackett because a month earlier I had seen him with Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show, and he was talking about always going to the GGO in Greensboro, North Carolina, but for the first time ever, he didn't have tickets. And so I wrote him a letter, sent it to the Tonight Show, and I said, "Hey, I got 2 tickets. You want one?" And so he calls me up and he says, hey, Hey, Tommy, this is Buddy Hackett. How you doing, man? You know, it started like that. And we ended up talking a long time, but he basically said since he didn't have tickets, he accepted to go do something in Vegas or something. So he was busy that day, but he really appreciated me offering.
Oh,
Wow.
that's crazy.
We talked on and on and on, you know, so I ended up taking one of my junior high friends instead. But yeah, it could have been Buddy Hackett.
One of my dad's favorite jokes was a Buddy Hackett joke, and it was when Buddy Hackett was visiting he was visiting Rome, and he went to the Vatican and talked to the Pope. And as he was walking around the Sistine Chapel and all the beautiful pieces of art and galleries and columned pillars, and he says, "Why don't you sell some of this and feed the poor?" And he said, "Exito exere illegitimi," which in Latin meant, "Get out of here, you fat bastard." Exito obesere illegitimi. That's the joke.
Buddy Hackett.
Buddy Hackett.
Was he on the Tonight Show once a week? I mean, he was one of those guys like Dangerfield. I mean, even more than Dangerfield. He was always on the Tonight Show.
Him and Don Rickles, all those old cats.
Rickles, you know? Yeah.
Anybody under 40 has no idea what we're talking about right now.
I know. That's true.
Who the hell's Buddy Hackett?
Yeah, I know. Who the heck is Don Rickles? You know? I mean, those were the days, my friends.
Those were the days. Well, they couldn't get away with the stuff they get. Our world has changed now with comedians, obviously. So.
It has. It has.
Which brings up
what's that?
Which brings up our next topic.
Cassette
tapes. Because Tom is in an office that he's trying to clean that has
to make it worse. Reel to reels.
Holy
I've
shit.
got bags and boxes full of reel to reels.
Gold. That's gold, Tom. Gold.
Like in this bag alone, I've got like 10 small reels and I've got maybe 10 large reels, and they're labeled. Oh, there's Carol. Hey, Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hey, Carol.
So Tom was showing me
they're
these
labeled.
reels, before the show, and saying he had to use legacy.com to digitize them and send them back. And I used legacy.com.
And it worked.
And I sent in cassettes and all kinds of tapes, and then they send you back this.
Wow.
That's it. On a thumb drive. That's it.
Yep. And it's 32 gig.
Jeez.
This is 32 gigs. So the whole box of
I
had VHS tapes, audio tapes. I had these mini VHS tapes from my video blogging days.
Wow.
You know, I have old hard drives that don't really work anymore. So it worked. And you get back this. And just I'm
going to do that. I'm going to do that because, Joey, we moved into this house 26 years ago. And I've got that door behind me is a very deep closet full of everything I couldn't figure out where it would go. And so it's in that closet. And I came across reel to reels recently. I'm cleaning it. I'm getting rid of stuff. I'm decluttering. And I came across reel to reels with titles on them, labels that say Tommy reading age 3. So you guys think you're pretty smart. I was reading at age 3, but at least I knew how to fake it at age 3.
Exactly.
And I've got all the bands I played in. I've got original music on reel to reels, and I've got all. I was telling Steve that in the 90s, every TV show I was on, like Today Show and Regis and Kathy Lee.
That's great.
ABC and CNN. I've got all the big beta tapes, my Disney commercials. I've got it all on tapes that you can't play anymore. So I'm gonna send it all into this place and relive my childhood.
You should.
Yeah, legacy.com won't do DAT tapes. That's from the radio station.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get my reel of all the highlights.
Oh, your highlight reel.
The highlight reel from when I was in radio, and the DJ said, "You got to put it on DAT because it was digital audio tape." He's like, "This is the best quality," and I can't get it off.
Oh, I didn't know you were in radio. I'd forgotten about that.
I forgot about that too. What didn't you start out at college?
Yes, yeah, I did. I've loved radio. I did radio even before college. I did radio at the college station when I was the summer before college, where I lived, Salem State.
Okay.
Salem State Radio, WM, too many W's. And then I did radio. I talked my way into Smith College because I went to UMass Amherst. because I thought, I might be able to get a date with one of the girls there.
One of the girls at Smith.
No one was interested in me. It was a total failure. And then I got a job. Then I got a show at Amherst College.
Wow!
So it's the 5 college program, and you can take advantage of all the other universities. So I was at UMass Amherst, and you couldn't get on the radio there because all the seniors, they had like Monday through Friday shows, which was stupid because it didn't give anybody the opportunity. So I went to AMH, and the DJ who was before me, who trained me, was Jeff Berlin, who's a big voice in Boston radio. I don't know if you know him, but he's a voice of stations all around the country. So if I'm on vacation, I'm driving around, and he's like, "You're listening to like WCOD." It's Jeff Berlin. Like, his voice is everywhere. So he taught me. So then, to make a long story short, I was a producer of a morning radio show in Boston. And then I was like a wacky sidekick and had little clips and stuff. And I did all these crazy, silly stories, which are all on tape. Oh, some of them are actually online. The DJ says, "Hey, Steve, do you want to go to the Olympics in Japan?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Not really." So they said I was going to the Olympics, and I would get in the other studio, and I'd get like on a kind of a phone line thing, and he had previously recorded he would call a hotel in Japan and record the whole beginning part asking for me, and you'd hear and then he'd ask for me, and they'd say, in the accent, "Hold on a second," and then it went and then he'd plug in studio number 2, and I'd go, "Hello?" He'd like, "Steve, how is it in Japan?" And I had written all this stuff. I'd go on the internet and find people who'd been to Japan and like make like I did their stories.
Nice.
We did it for a week of me reporting live from Japan. "Where'd you go today?" I says, "Oh, I went and I had a steam bath, and I went on the streets, and I ate all this food." And so friends of ours thought I was in Japan.
Nice.
My brother-in-law thought I was in Japan.
Well, the power of radio.
And then
doing a good job.
On the day that I came back, I brought sake into the studio. We all drank it and stuff. And they're like, "Welcome back, welcome back." And after the show, the station manager says, "Hey, Steve, come here. I want to see you in my office." So I go into the station manager, and he's like, "How did you pay for that trip to Japan?" and Kevin, the DJ, said to me, "Don't tell anyone that this was fake. Like, don't ever tell." And so when the station manager says to me, "How did you afford that trip? Like, did you go with your own company or something?" Because I was working too at the time. And I was like, "I don't know how to answer this." I didn't know what to say because Kevin told me don't. And I says, "Well, I told him I didn't go to Japan." That was that thing. Let me tell you one thing that was really cool in that he'd say, "So where are you now?" And this one day he says, "Oh, I'm in the Olympic Center where all the athletes are." And Kevin says, "Well, can you grab an athlete?" I'm like, yeah, I'll grab one. Hold on. And he puts on hold music, and he goes to commercial. And so he had recorded an interview with an athlete. And so when he came back from commercial, he's like, "Hey, okay, we have this person on the line." And it was a real interview. So it was all,
that's brilliant.
It was really smart.
That's brilliant.
How many FCC regulations were violated in the course of this?
Well, that's a funny thing too, because I had a radio executive who I met with who listened to some of my podcasts around defund the police and critical race theory and that kind of stuff. And he introduced me to a radio buddy of his, and I talked to him last week, and he's now going to put me on some radio shows to be interviewed about. So this would be, he's like, "You good with radio?" And I'm like, "I've never been on radio in my life," but I said, "Give me a microphone." I'm good. So yeah, I'm excited to be on the radio.
You guys may not know. Have I ever told you that I first was on radio when I was 6 weeks old?
6 weeks. Okay, that beats everybody.
I was I wasn't just in a back room pretending to be 6 weeks old. I was actually 6 weeks old. And I lived in the back of a radio station in Siler City, North Carolina, in a big field. There was a little brick radio station with this huge tower behind this tiny little station. and the station had a 1-bedroom apartment behind it. My parents lived there. My dad had built the station.
Wow.
And I grew up my first year of life in the back of the station. So they opened the early morning show with the sound of me crying at the age of 6 weeks. They recorded it on an old Wallensack tape recorder. And my dad would bring that tape recorder home when I was a little older than 6 weeks. I was, like elementary school or something. He would bring the tape recorder home every day and he would interview me. He would say, well, what was your day like, Tommy? And he would hold up the microphone to me and I would talk to him. And so that's some of these tapes that I'm sure will be fascinating.
Oh, you even got those?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be fascinating for the whole world to listen to. So I'm going to definitely pay to have them digitized and then just throw them out the window. But that was a great introduction because when I was doing book tour, my first book tour was with True Success in 1994. And I was on every Good Morning San Diego, Good Morning Seattle, Good Morning Chicago. I was on all those TV shows, but I was also on whatever the biggest local radio show was. And sometimes 2 or 3, but sometimes just one, the big show. And they would always say to me, God, you're the only author who can actually do this that we've ever had on the show. And I said, I've been doing it since I was 6 weeks old, I can do it with my diaper full. I mean, I can, nothing stops.
Most writers aren't as elegant as you are with your conversational skills, Tom. So there's that.
You're right. That's their mode of communication is the pen on paper or the typing on the keys. They're not geared to oral delivery. No. And I guess the fact that I was a teacher all those years, but I had an agent at the Washington Speakers Bureau who once said to me I was the outlier of professors because I thought being a professor had prepared me to be a public speaker. And he said, oh, it's the other way around. He said, most professors make terrible public speakers. And I said, why? And he said, because they think their job is to compress as much information as possible into the time allowed. And he said, you understand that's not the job. The job is not information. The job is impact. You want to have as great an impact as possible in the time allowed. And your information is auxiliary and supportive of that.
Wow.
And so I thought, wow, nobody had ever said that before, but I kind of had that natural inclination,
Yeah, I wish I would have known. I would have loved to audit your classes at Notre Dame. That would have been awesome.
Had fun.
I bet.
The new edition of the book that captures that class, it just came out. New edition is out. Philosophy for Dummies, second edition.
You got it done. Good for you. I know you were hammering away on that.
Oh man, it was the hardest time I ever had. I think I had 4 editors, and they objected to every other word I said. Every other word. It averaged out every other word. They would say, no, you can't use that word. And, they had all these rules they didn't have in 1999 when I did the first edition. They have rules like you can't use first person plural. No we, no us, no our.
Wow.
And see, philosophers in the 20th century, we had done a lot of testing of our intuitions. What are our intuitions about that moral question? We would often begin our discussion with consulting of sort of general range of people's intuitions, and they often express those in the first person plural. Because it wasn't idiosyncratic. My intuition was going to settle this issue, but it was our general intuitions. And so they stripped all that out of my book. I had to find ways around that. And then there were academic words.
What possible reason could they have for that rule?
It engages the reader more to say you.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's what they would say. And there were all these other things. They didn't want me to tell stories. And I'm sorry. You guys know me. I love
Who are these people?
That's like, don't breathe.
They're editors.
Speak for 3 hours, but don't breathe.
This is not right.
I mean, for me, you sell the ideas with the stories. And so they were trying constantly to strip my stories out. And I would fight. I quit 2 or 3 times and said, let me send your money back. I don't want to do this, Without my stories, no book. And they would say, oh, okay, you can have the story. Just cut it down a little bit. And I said, if I cut it down, I'm quitting. I'm sending your money back. And they said, okay, you can have the whole story. So it was just that over and over and over again.
Well, we talked. We were on the phone together, and you said that you were going to quit. I remember you're like, I'm done. I actually can't write.
I had hair when I started that a few months ago. I had hair. And it's funny because it gave me shingles. I mean, I got shingles for the first time in my life.
Shit.
And the dermatologist looks at this thing on my chest and she says her first words, are you under any stress? I said, let me tell you about this book that I'm trying to do a second edition of. Am I under any stress, you know? But
Sorry,
the good
dude,
news is the first guy just sent me a message through LinkedIn, a guy I don't know, saying, hey, I love the first edition of your book, Philosophy for Dummies, but the second edition is even better.
Oh, good.
And reflecting on that, I realized all the obstacles they threw in my way made me get so creative to get around the obstacles that it ended up, upping my game. So I actually, hopefully the book has actually benefited from it.
Did I tell you, Steve, that was my first book into philosophy? I read Ayn Rand just because you have to read that when you're in college. and then because she was accused of stealing from Aristotle and ripping on him at the same time, specifically John Galt's speech at the end, which was basically Aristotle's speech to the Athenians, all that. And I actually bought Tom's first book well before I knew him.
That's
and
wow.
Thought that was such a great book because it helped me. And then it got me into Hegel and Kant.
God bless you, man.
And Spinoza. Yeah. And so it was just one of those things where I was like, God bless you, sir, because you got me into it. I really enjoyed philosophy and I've been studying it for the last 20 years.
And one thing you just said, Steve, one thing you just said was you had to read Ayn Rand. And ironically, all your libertarian friends force you to. Now, meditate on the word libertarian for a second. And then the fact that they force us to read her. I mean, a bank president was sending me, there's Atlas Shrugged on the first shelf of my bookcase, taking up pretty much the first shelf of my bookcase.
It's a big book.
These gigantic books.
12 years it took her to write. Took her 12 years to write Atlas Shrugged.
And you know what? It took her about as long to write The Fountainhead, I think, and I read it once. It was the first book I read after I took the Evelyn Wood speed reading course. And I read it while my friend was taking me to the beach. He was stopped to fill up the gas tank of his Opel Kadett car. And from the time he put the thing in the gas tank to the time he pulled it out, I had read The Fountainhead.
Howard Rourke is a dick. There's your synopsis.
You could have saved me even the time it took me to read it.
Yeah. No.
Joey, the reason we're here is on Facebook, this thing keeps popping up to me interviewing. It's an interview about Saturday Night Live and the funniest joke Stefan ever did and the punchline. And so what they said was all the writers. He is. And all the writers used to love watching Woody Allen's Love and Death.
Oh,
yes.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what's this punchline? What does it mean? Like, I had no idea. So I watched Love and Death, and in it, Woody Allen is like, it's all this philosophy, and he's like saying to, he like quotes paragraphs, and he's right to the camera, his philosophy. And so like, Tom, I messaged him, have you ever seen Woody Allen's Love and Death? That's how it started.
Oh, wow. That's
and not only but in his early career, I had made a video montage 5 to 8 minutes long of all the philosophical scenes from his early movies. Just boom, 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 quick cut between them all.
Oh, nice.
And I would show him in my Philosophy 101 class one day on the meaning of life. And we would look at Woody Allen, as Steve said, breaking the fourth wall, addressing the camera, addressing the audience. So often, or the repartee between him and Diane Keaton, And I ended up writing a little magazine article called Woody Allen and the Meaning of Life. And I was really steeped in all that stuff for a while because he was the one filmmaker who was addressing all the big questions.
He is.
In fact, when Steve said, "Do you know why we're here?" just now to you, I thought we were going to get some of this metaphysical musing. I mean, why are we here, Steve? And we have to write a third edition of Dummies. I mean, tell me.
Well, you don't want to get shingles again. Did you know that? I learned something in my homework on gender ideology. Did you know that Matrix?
Yeah. Okay.
The Matrix is a metaphor for transgender people. And the Kozlowski brothers who wrote it are the Kozlowski sisters now. They both transitioned fully from male to female.
I didn't know that.
And I didn't either. But in the book, one of the books we researched on this, Helen Joyce wrote a whole chapter on how transgender ideology was shared in the Matrix. The Matrix being, the fake world, which is the fake world of any trans person.
Wow.
And to take the red pill, they have to actually go into be transgender, own the real self. That's their real life. The whole thing is metaphysical. I mean, the whole thing is metaphorical for transgender.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Blew my brain.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
I was like, oh my God. I actually watched the show again with my 10-year-old, which my wife wasn't overly happy about. But it was like, he's like, Daddy, this is so cool. I was like, I know. He didn't understand the transgender piece, but yeah, it blew my mind. So there you go. There's metaphor everywhere if we look.
I thought I had on a shelf a book, The Matrix and Philosophy, but I'm not seeing it. But I am seeing 2 copies of a book called Woody Allen and Philosophy.
I need to check that out.
I did a blurb on the back cover of that, which is why that's on the shelf. 24 in Philosophy, Lost in Philosophy. There's a series of books,
Seinfeld in Philosophy.
What's
There's a Seinfeld in Philosophy. Yeah.
Oh, in fact, Seinfeld in Philosophy is what started that series. So this guy named Bill Irwin, young philosophy professor, he decided all his friends, all the other assistant professors of philosophy he knew were all watching Seinfeld and loving it. So he said, let's get together and write essays about the philosophical topics that come up in Seinfeld episodes. And so they did. It was Seinfeld and Philosophy, and it sold pretty well. And so the publisher said to him, can you do another topic? And the one he picked was The Simpsons in Philosophy. In a very short period of time, sold 200,000 copies. And then the publisher said, a blank check, do as many of these books as you want to do.
Family Guy.
Yeah, right. There probably is one. And so my son had an idea. He said, Dad, why don't you do a book for that and philosophy series? Do one on the superheroes. And I said, well, I haven't read superhero comics since I was 16. And he said, oh, they're full of philosophical ideas. They're so much better now than they were when you were growing up. And so I said, well, look, because he wanted to be a film director. I said, I'll do it if you'll do it. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I'll get some great philosophers, and not just assistant professors, some really senior professors too. But you go get the creators of the superhero stories, the best Superman guy, the best Batman person, the best Spider-Man person. And we put together the first book in the series it involved the creators as well as commentators. And it was so much fun. Superheroes in Philosophy.
Right.
Oh,
Did
wow.
your son become a filmmaker?
Yeah. And by the way, and we launched it at Comic-Con when we were the only guys not in costume. There was 100,000 people there that year. We went the previous year just to check it out. And we had all these really popular writers who were writing, Smallville for TV and the movies and all this stuff. We had all these on our panel because they were our contributors. And so we got this huge crowd to turn out for the launch of our book, which was really fun.
That's super cool.
His son, Matt Morris, of Matt Morris Vineyards?
Matt Morris Wines. Matt Morris Wines.
Matt Morris Wines. Joey, Tom mentions his son, Matt Morris, who has a winery on Joseph's show. So I get online and order the wine. Nice. Now I'm a fan, and that's my wine.
Good wine.
I keep ordering
it. Where is the vineyard?
Here's what he did. Here's what he did, Joey. He was doing photography and filmmaking for all the high-end wineries. Their harvest, the crushing of the grapes, all this.
Like here in Napa?
Yeah. So he turned their websites, which were old and stupid and boring, he turned their websites into amazing things. And he had all these great photography and film on there. And so one older winemaker passed away, who was he was referred to as the mayor of Napa. He was one of the older guys who did the high-end cab for all the people who charged, $400 a bottle, Herb Lamb Vineyards. And so his wife asked our son the next year, Matt, could you be in charge of the harvest and this year's vintage, because you know about everything that goes on. So he did it. And there was a Frenchman in Napa who had gotten 3 Parker 100 ratings for his wines in 1 year, which is like unheard of. 3 Robert Parker 100s. And so Matt asked him, let's make a wine together. And the guy said, okay, what do you want to do? And Matt said the original California red grape, which started being pulled out when Merlot and Cab and all the others got popular. It's called Charbonneau, came from Italy. And it may have some roots in Spain too. I'm not sure about it, but there weren't that many acres left of Charbonneau in all of California. but it was the original red wine grape. And so they made it together, and the first year was amazing. And then the guy got a job, the winemaker got a job with Realm or someplace that wouldn't let him do outside work. And so the top French female winemaker in Napa teamed up with our son to continue the production. And I think it was last year, maybe you've had this probably, Steve. They got one of their ratings I remember was 97 from Jeb Dunnick. And to get that in a cab, you have to pay $400. But his wines are like 85 a bottle, I think, roughly.
Wow.
So yeah, it's unbelievable stuff, Joey. If you like Cab or Merlot or anything in that range, it's just different. It's distinctive, but it's unbelievable, and it goes with all the stuff that you would eat Cab, that you would drink Cab and Merlot with. Charbonnet.
I can buy it at local places, or I need to order.
Go on the website, mattmorriswines.com, and find out. I'm not sure. He just sent us a case a few days ago.
I think it's such small batches that you need to order.
Yeah, I think it's probably right. All the Michelin 3-star restaurants in California were carrying it, I know, and one of them actually burned down in one of the fires a year or two ago.
Oh, that's tragic.
So they have. He lives in St. Helena.
Oh, it makes sense.
Well, that rock music, Tom's new theme, means we're running out of time here. So Joey Dumont and Tom Mars, thank you. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Just rock out at the end. Thank you, guys.
Man, it was great to catch up with you guys. This is awesome.
It was awesome.
There we go.